Hello everyone, welcome to episode 3 of Highways and Hilltops. I'm Charlie.
And I'm Jody.
On this episode, we'll be talking hiking gear, cell phone service, park maps, and trail safety.
And I'll be sharing need-to-know information like how to sign up for park text notifications. And we'll unpack the mysterious world of park passes and timed entry vehicle reservations. So hang on tight. Here we go. We really want to dive into the fun stuff, but we also want you to be prepared so you can enjoy your trip. So first, we need to cover a few more technical details that are specific to Glacier National Park, and then we'll get on to the fun stuff. In case you didn't know, you can subscribe to text updates from the Park Service. This is actually really helpful, and funny story, I love the park so much, I'm still on that texting update list. So I'll be sitting at work, and then my phone go off and it's Glacier National Park telling me that a road's closed because, drifting snow or something like that. And a little part of me smiles because it feels like I'm still there. It's really fun to know what part of the park they're talking about. So if they say, the east entrance is closed from St. Mary Lake to Logan Pass because of snow drifts, I can see all of that in my mind because we've been there.
Those weather alerts are huge, right? Because again, you have trouble with internet at spots, so you have to kind of watch. But there was accidents on the going to the Sun Road that blocked the road. So if you went up there, basically you're just stuck up there all day, right? So really, really nice. I enjoy that myself.
Yeah, so I'm going to give these to you, but I will also put them in the show notes out on the website in case you are driving or you just can't write them down right now. So if you want to follow the Glacier National Park road updates, you're going to text GNP, and all of these start with GNP, by the way, for Glacier National Park. So GNPROADS, all one word, to 333-111. So that's going to be your short code. You put that in like a phone number, 333-111, and then the text in your message is going to be GNPROADS. If you want to follow for trail updates, you can text the same number, 333-111, and your message is going to be GNPTRAILS with an S at the end, GNPTRAILS. And then if you want to follow for campground updates, and this one's going to be really important if you're trying to camp inside the park so that you'll know if campgrounds are going to be closed or if there's, scheduled closures or things like that going on. They will also post when there's bear activity near campgrounds, and so we found that interesting, even though we were staying at the KOA outside the park, that those updates were happening. Campground updates is GNPCGS, all one word, and again you're going to text the number 333-111 for all of those.
We're not tent campers, but if we were, that'd probably be the most important text message you ever received. So.
Oh, for sure. We found these updates to be really helpful for planned closings and for information while we were in parts of the park with cell service. But like Charlie already said, cell service, you just need to be forewarned that you are going to have zero cell service at most places inside the park boundary. The St. Mary and Apgar Visitor Centers, that's on each end of going to the Sun Road. The east end is the St. Mary end. The west end is the Apgar Village end. Those two visitor centers do have public Wi-Fi, so you can get some Wi-Fi there. Some of the lodges have Wi-Fi, but it's mainly for their guests. And then the majority of places, your phone is just going to be on SOS. So just be mindful of that. You'll want to be sure that you download any music and podcasts that you want to listen to while you're on the trail. And then more important than that, screenshot your trail maps and the shuttle schedule. And here's a pro tip. Even if you don't think you're going to use the shuttle, go ahead and screenshot that schedule.
Absolutely. You're miles down in a trail, coming up to a trailhead. Everybody carries maps. Everybody carries waters. We use kind of that backpack thing for the water. Everybody carries snacks. Everybody carries, some forms of medicine and first aid, whether that be something for a cut or whatever. It doesn't have to be real heavy, but a little bit of precaution there. I noticed we walked one of our first ever hikes in Glacier, and it was several miles.
We were going to hike to St. Mary Falls, and just down the road, or what seemed to be just down the road, there was another parking area. And the St. Mary Falls parking area is very, very small, and it was full. So we were like, well, there's another parking area just down the road.
Just a big amusement park. We'll just go down here. And
let's just go park down there. Well, what we didn't realize is that was like 3 miles of walking.
One way.
Before we got to the beginning of the trail that went to the St. Mary Falls. And it was already late afternoon. So when we took off on this hike, we're not avid hikers, right? Thank goodness we carried those backpacks with water in them. The air is so dry up there in Glacier National Park. And if you're from Oklahoma, you're used to a very humid environment. I can tell you right now that the elevation and the dry air is going to work on you really, really hard. Your nose might bleed. Your throat gets extremely dry just from walking a short ways. So those backpacks were really a lifesaver.
If you don't have water. If you have water, it's great, right?
Yeah.
So we all wore hiking shoes, good treaded hiking shoes. We all had socks that were kind of a thick, heavy cotton, kind of a hiking sock. We all had the backpack with the water in it, which is quite sufficient. I think we even used the Camelback brand because it has the spout and all that stuff. We all had trail mix. We all had all those things we just mentioned. We also all had a really light kind of a raincoat, but we like that breathable type of raincoat. Mm-hmm. I think it's maybe like a Columbia brand or something like that we use. But all those things are important because you go from warm to cold. I mean, it just really changes rapidly. I remember on that first hike, as soon as you come into St. Mary's, I believe that's on the east side, we drove in by the lake and we just stopped. Okay, here's our first ever hike in Glacier. And this is the one we ended up like 10 miles.
Yeah.
But the fun thing about it was so beautiful. We were hiking down across some of the prettiest lakes you've ever seen. We went down in there just a little ways and we started seeing animals right away, different deer, different things. But the terrain, what I was going to say is like it started, we were kind of at a high elevation and it kind of felt like you could really feel the sun on you, right? And as we started down in there, we got in the lower part, I started getting kind of cold. I put my coat on, hiked a mile or two like that. Then, hey, we're back out on the mountaintop and now I'm warm again. So this pack that has these first aid, these snacks, this water, the shoes, the socks, an extra pair of socks would be a grand idea. Just be prepared. You could walk out of a warm spot into a cold spot and walk up on the next peak and it'd be snowing. You just don't know.
Yeah, it's really crazy. And we made it down there, and then when we were coming back, it was starting to get dark on us. And the temperature changes drastically when the sun starts going down. At this point, we were wishing we knew the shuttle schedule because we knew if we made it back to the St. Mary parking lot, remember, that's the one we couldn't park in, so we had gone farther down the road to find parking. But if we had known the shuttle schedule, we could have stopped at St. Mary and gotten on the shuttle. But we didn't think we needed the shuttle, so we didn't screenshot the schedule, and now we didn't have a cell phone signal, so we couldn't get back out to the park website to see if the shuttle schedule was anywhere. And it's not posted, so you just kind of have to know all that going in.
4 or 5 miles of walking, right? Big deal.
We were tired, and it was getting dark, and we were kind of frustrated by this point that we had parked so far away, and we still had to walk that last leg to get back to our car.
Every time you start off, you say, okay, this is a 3-mile hike. It's going to be beautiful. I mean, and by the way, these are some of the most beautiful places in the whole world. I mean, the lakes are beautiful. The water, it's just amazing. But we always say, hey, we're just going to go down here. This is a little loop. It's 3 miles, and then we'll move. We get out there, we end up going 7 or 8 miles, and then we have 7 or 8 miles back. It's just part of it. So I think everybody's that way. I mean, you get to see and stuff. It's so pretty. I mean, it's just so hard to describe the beauty of these mountains. And then like the way the wind comes down through the mountains and it has that whistle to it. It's just a gorgeous place. One other thing that I wanted to mention is as we got down in there, so I've got a kind of a catch in my back in my mid-50s, and I'm starting to get that kind of that pain. So I started using a walking stick. I think that for most people that's a great idea because you get into a narrow trail that's going around a bluff or something. I don't want to scare anybody, but all it takes is one little catch, one little stumble. I just think it helped me to have something to lean on. I get now why people use the kind of the ski pole type walking sticks. Mm-hmm. You're stepping over logs. You know, we've seen logs that are bigger than a car, you know, that had fallen across, you know, and it's not that rugged, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's a nice trail, but you just find yourself in places that you're kind of getting physical, or maybe it's getting a little narrow, and having a stick like that just kind of made me feel like if I did kind of stumble, I've got myself, you know.
Absolutely. Also, it had a whistle attached to it for bears.
It does.
So you could use your bear whistle.
I've actually got a really cool peeled, is it aspen, I think?
I think it is.
So it's got all the colors in it, and on the end of it, it's got a compass, which I don't really actually know how to read that well. But then on the other end of that, it's got this big bear whistle. And that is one thing that we can share that we understand is when we're going through these hikes, you're going to get quiet and you're just mesmerized by the beauty, but you need to be talking.
Yes,
you need to be making noise. So you come around a curve and then right there is whatever. He kind of needs to know you're coming. Mm-hmm. And I think if the groups that you hear groups talking in the mountains, like you'll hear a group of 10 people or whatever come down out of the mountains and they're talking, mm-hmm. they're doing that. They're not being rude. They're doing that because they want their presence to be known.
Yeah, there's definitely some safety in numbers, and that's one of the things that they'll tell you is you don't want to sneak up on a grizzly bear and just be face to face because he didn't hear you coming and you didn't know he was there. So it is smart to be in a group, to talk, to make noise. You'll see some people wearing bear bells on their backpack, and we saw a few hikers wearing bear bells, but sometimes you're right. You just kind of get into that groove of walking and everybody's quiet and you're taking in everything going on around you. And you just don't think necessarily to make noise. But it is the smart thing to do because maybe you do want to see a grizzly, but you sure don't want to surprise him.
I don't want to walk up around the corner and be quiet with a badger. I mean,
that's right.
Or a moose. There's a lot of things, right? But the great thing is you're going to see so many different animals and so much beauty. I don't even know if I could really describe how pretty that place really is. Water that's so blue and deep. I remember we were walking down that first trail, and the water coming off this waterfall, I'd never seen anything like it. So I fished my whole life. I've been all over different lakes, but this water coming up, it must have been 100 foot thick, right? And coming down these mountains. And it was swift from the very bottom to the very top. It was really churning water, what it was. Yeah. And that was coming by us, and we were sitting there, and it was shaking the ground. It was so powerful and loud. So you find out really quick that this is really, really something. It's not like at home, wading the creeks and all that stuff. So
yeah, it is not playing around, that's for sure. As far as maps go, I haven't downloaded the All Trails app, but a lot of avid hikers seem to love it. It works off of satellite instead of data, so as long as your phone GPS can connect to a satellite, it should work. If you're going to hike backcountry, for sure you should probably check out a mapping app that connects to satellite instead of your cell phone data.
Yeah, there's actually devices that watches and things like that. They're GPS and they have emergency alerts and stuff like that on them. Most of the hiking we're going to do is in the, I wouldn't call it backcountry hiking. People get permits and they go for several days, right, and come back. And so you get into that, you really need to do your research. That's a different animal altogether.
Yeah, and if you are one of those people, shoot us a direct message on Instagram because we would love to interview you about your backcountry experience.
Yeah, because I'm always trying to talk the family into going out somewhere and camping for a few days. I'm intrigued by the fact that you can carry everything on your back, be gone for 4 or 5 days, and come back. And so, matter of fact, I even want one of those little bitty. What is the tiny little stove that I was trying to get you to buy me? The little sterno stove or whatever it is. Yeah. And so, yeah.
At the very least, take the map that the ranger gives you at the park entrance and just stick it in your pack because you may be great at reading all the map signs, but they're just not that great sometimes. So take that map, and that way if you get into a pinch, you will at least have something on paper. A couple of things that I found on the Park Service website, they recommend anytime you're going into the park and you're not going to have cell phone service, to log a day trip plan before you take off hiking, even if you're just going on short day hikes, and leave that information with family or friends who know when they should expect to be hearing back from you.
Yeah, let someone know you're going. Let someone know when you expect to be back, and be very clear with what you plan to do, because it could, the way the weather changes, I mean, in the summer it's typically not that bad, but you could get into trouble pretty easy.
Yeah. They also advise to let your loved ones know that you're probably going to be in an area without cell phone service and out of touch as long as you're staying there. They do recommend the satellite SOS system, like Charlie mentioned a while ago, the GPS watches or something like that, especially if you're going to be backcountry hiking. And, I mean, it's wild out there. You just never know. I mean, you could get out there and just fall and break your leg or something.
Yeah, anything could happen.
So you just want to make sure that somebody knows at least a general area that you're going to be in and when you should be expected back.
Before we scare everybody, so we're giving all these cautions. The great thing about this park that I like is there's a parking area ever so often, right? And so it's very wild. The road coming in is it's really nice. Watch out for the bicyclists. There's bicyclists all up and down the Going to Sun Road. So just remember that there's always, you come around a corner, there's always going to be a bicyclist. Very narrow, but it's beautiful. And nobody's in a hurry on this road anyway, right? You're just not in a hurry. It's too, just like all the others. It's super curvy and bluffs hanging out. But what I was going to say is there's a parking lot ever so often. And so you pick these little, imagine you drive in here, you're going to pass a beautiful lake on your left. It's going to and then you're going to come to a parking space. When you come to that parking space, there's usually a bathroom. There's usually signage that says go this way or that way. It's a few miles. So you don't have to be much of a hiker is what I'm trying to say. You can park there. You can walk a couple of miles and see some beautiful things, come back and have lunch, and you can move right down the road to another parking space and do the same thing. You don't have to be an Iron Man. I think the biggest thing that stands out to me that on these national park trips is, we're not necessarily, 20 years old in great shape anymore, right? And you think of a hiker, this mountain climb person, right? But we do fine. And because we were able to move from space to space, and you take these little short trips. Matter of fact, there's a lot of them that's not going up and down. They'll give you a moderate trail level, so this one's pretty flat or whatever, and you can walk a couple of miles and walk a couple of miles back, and you're not just too tired. Now there's some that are way more severe, and they'll give you the 20 milers if you want them. But I guess the thing is you can keep it pretty moderate. You don't have to be in great shape.
Yeah, that's a great point. Another thing to think about, because of your cell phone coverage not being good, is checking the weather before you enter the park. It is a good idea to kind of have an idea about what the forecast looks like for the future of the day. So not just for the hour that you're in, but what's going to be happening over the next couple of hours while you're in the park and you don't have cell phone service. Now, on the other hand, you're in the mountains and the weather can change rapidly. So you just got to keep an eye to the sky and make sure that you're watching out for abrupt weather changes. Once when we were in Yellowstone, the weather was gorgeous. We got out and took pictures. It was like 60 degrees. And then as we started up the mountain, it started sprinkling. And then before we knew it, it was raining a little. And then it started hailing. And then it started snowing. And it was like every 2 miles that we went up, the weather was doing something different.
Yeah, and I remember at Glacier that on this first hike, it was sunny and pretty, and you're wearing shorts and a hoodie and your little backpack, and you're off, and that's the greatest thing about all these northern national parks. If you go time of year June, July, it's just so nice up there, like the best weather ever, But to your point, I think what's cool about it is you'll be over here and it's the best weather ever, and you get to the highest elevations or something changes, and there's kind of a cloud type of deal that comes over the mountains, and it'll bring a snow, it'll bring a rain or something like that, and it's so clear you can see that coming, and it'll kind of settle in the mountains for a few minutes and it'll leave. It's really neat. So
yeah, it's really cool. Okay, so we talked about cell phone service, we talked about maps, we talked about weather, we've talked about the campgrounds and the texting alerts. We have covered a lot. Now we're going to move on and talk about perhaps the one thing that causes the most confusion when visiting a national park: park passes. Oh my goodness. I remember when I first started reading about these park passes and I was like, what am I looking at? And I am not alone, because on all of the pages that I follow, this is by far the most frequently asked question is, what is a park pass? Why do I need it? Is it the same thing as a vehicle reservation? What is timed entry? There is so much confusion around it, and even now whenever I get out on the park website, I can see why. It's just kind of a weird deal. So we're going to give you a quick rundown, but honestly, there's so much confusion around this subject, it probably needs its own show. So I've broken it down into 3 things that you really need to get straight. And the first one is the park pass. Think of this like your gate ticket. Like if you were going to go to a concert, you might have to pay a toll to drive on a road, and then you might have to pay for parking, and then you also have to buy a ticket to get into the concert. So this one is your concert ticket. There are a few options when it comes to park passes, and the National Park Service website lists all of them for you. So you can buy a 3-day pass, or you can buy, I think there's maybe a 7-day pass, or you can buy the annual pass, which is usually what we buy. It will get you into multiple parks. But there's also things that you need to know, because if you're military, or if you're tribal, or if you have a kid in the 4th grade, you can get into the parks for free. And I don't have time to run all of that down for you, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a link to the page that will take you to all of that information about the park pass. Remember, this is your concert ticket, okay? On the Highways and Hilltops website, so that you can go look at that page and see if you fit into any of those special categories that would get you into the park for free. Just a little note about the tribal thing. It does not apply to all national parks. It does apply to Glacier, and you have to have proof, and it has to be a federally recognized tribe. I'm Cherokee. We have a tribal tag on our RV. So we're able to get into the park for free at Glacier without paying the park entrance pass, which is the concert ticket. And we also don't have to have a vehicle reservation, which I'm going to talk about here in just a minute.
Which we typically buy the annual pass, right? Isn't it $85, I believe, or something like that?
Something like that.
And we get all parks all year, so that's pretty cool. But I remember the first time we were in line for a reservation somewhere, and the guy had walked up and down the line of cars, and he's seen our Cherokee tag, and he's like, "Come on, get in here!" And he just waved us in. I thought that was pretty funny. So for our tribal, at least for our tribal friends, that's pretty cool.
Also, they don't just out and out mention it on the park pass page.
No.
So it's kind of something that you have to search for, but you can take our word for it. At Glacier in 2025, you can still get in with a federally recognized tribal identification card or tag, and that will get you in the gate, and you don't have to worry about the vehicle reservation, so you can breathe easy if you are a member of a federally recognized tribe. Okay, so now that we've got the park entrance pass down, the second thing that we need to talk about is the timed entry vehicle reservation. If we go back to our concert example, this is going to be the fee for your toll road plus the parking fee combined. Think of it that way. So you've already got your concert ticket, that was your park pass. Now you're paying for parking and the drive to get there. This pass literally costs like $2. But here's the tricky part. They can be difficult to get. So here's what you need to know. Specific to Glacier National Park in the summer of 2025, from the dates of June 13th through September 28th, any vehicle that wants to enter going to the Sun Road from the west side, if you recall from earlier, that's where Apgar Village is at, on the west end of going to the Sun Road. That's going to be out closest to Whitefish, Montana side. Every vehicle that wants to enter in the west entrance for going to the Sun Road has to have a timed entry vehicle reservation. There's a lot of information about this out on the National Park website. If you will go to our website, www.highwaysandhilltops.com, and look for the show notes of this episode, I will drop the link there for you so that you can go straight to the page that talks about timed entry vehicle reservations. There are a few details that I can't recall right off the top of my head that you need to know. Something about 120 days when they open up, and also they hold on to a few and you can call the night before, but there's a specific time range in which you need to be calling to try to get your pass for the next day. So I'm going to link to that so you will be able to go find that information easily simply by going to our website and looking up this episode and clicking on the link. The other thing is that you have to have a vehicle timed entry reservation if you want to visit the North Fork area of Glacier National Park. So the west entrance of going to the Sun Road and the North Fork area. Here's the other caveat to that. You only have to have a timed entry vehicle reservation if you're going to enter the park between the hours of 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. So if you're going to the North Fork area or wanting to come in the west side of Going to the Sun Road, if you come in at 6:30 a.m., you don't have to have a reservation. Or if you come in after 3 p.m., you don't have to have a reservation. You still may have to pay the park entrance fee if there's a ranger at the gate taking money. So that's your concert ticket, remember. But you may not have to do the toll and parking. It is quite confusing, and for the life of me, that was the best example I could think of to hopefully break it down and make it a little bit simpler to understand. There are some reasons that they do this, and they're pretty good reasons. The parking lots can be small. Logan Pass Visitor Center parking lot actually is pretty good size, but during the really, really high traffic months, it can get overwhelmed really quickly. And so the reason for implementing the timed entry vehicle reservation is to kind of keep track of how many vehicles are in the park at a time and make sure that it's safe for people to park and have places to be and things like that. So just keep that in mind. Straight off the National Park website, it says visitors entering the park in a vehicle or on a motorcycle in one of these areas, that being the west entrance of Going to the Sun Road or the North Fork area, during these dates need two things: the timed entry vehicle reservation or a service reservation, and a park entrance fee or a valid park pass. So remember, the park pass is your concert ticket, and then the timed entry vehicle reservation is the other part of that. So let's talk about what this service reservation is. Well, if you book some type of activity inside the park with a commercial vendor, so this can be maybe a boat ride on St. Mary Lake, or you have booked horseback riding out of one of the villages. And there may be a few other activities that I'm not aware of that are offered by commercial service providers within the park. Those activities count as your vehicle reservation. I know, this is what makes it even more confusing. So if you have booked a boat ride, then you don't have to worry about getting the vehicle reservation. But here's what you do need to worry about. Remember, we talked about cell phone service being really spotty? Make sure that you screenshot or print out your receipt where you paid for your commercial service. So if you're going on a boat ride, you need that receipt, or you need a screenshot showing that you've paid for it. And that's what you're going to show the ranger at the gate whenever you go in to the park entrance. And that will count for your timed entry reservation. Okay. Hopefully that's not too confusing. If you have questions, I will be glad to help you if you just want to reach out. Also, if you are staying in park lodging, like at Apgar Village or at a campground within the park boundary, you also don't have to have a vehicle timed entry reservation, because your lodging receipt will serve to get you in and out of the gate without that vehicle reservation. So remember, commercial services, boat rides, horseback riding, lodging, a campsite that you've paid for, all of those things, just make sure that you have screenshots or a printout that you can get to without cell service, just in case you need to show that at the park entry and you don't have a way to access it. Okay, friends. Well, we're trying to keep these down to 30 to 40 minutes, and we covered a plethora of information today. So I hope that you're finding this podcast useful. The dog was up here barking, so Charlie had to take him downstairs. So I'm going to sign off for both of us and say thank you for tuning in to Highways and Hilltops. Again, don't forget to follow us on social media. On Facebook, we are Highways and Hilltops. On Instagram, we are Jody Charlie Keith. And you can also go to our website for all the goodies at www.highwaysandhilltops.com. Thanks for coming back, and we will see you on down the road.